We're going to talk about security today in the first 45 minutes of the day. And when I came up with this presentation, I was thinking, I had a thought experiment. If somebody in this room would ask me to hack into their Umbraco website, which steps would I take to try to achieve that? And I'm going to share what I thought of. The goal of today is that I'm going to educate you a bit about security, make you aware of security, that security is important for your websites. But I'm also giving you 9 concrete tips that you can implement right away after this session on your website. Easy tips, but really hardening your Umbraco website. And the reason I want to do that is that we don't want anything like this. We don't want to be in the news with Umbraco. We do want to be in the news, but not with a security issue. We want safe websites because it's important for all of us. I'm Jeffrey Schoemaker. I'm Dutch. And I'm an enthusiast about Umbraco. I have 12 years experience with it and security. And I work at Perplex in the Netherlands, a gold partner. The only thing you have to know about security up front is that security is all about defense in depth. There's not one thing you could put on your website and then you're secure. Not only a firewall is okay or only a good password. No, it's about multiple layers of defense and making it harder and harder. Even if one of the layers of defense breaks, there are several other layers that can protect you. And when people look at your Umbraco installation or hackers look at your Umbraco installation, they maybe see something like this. A well-fortified castle, but still rainbows and unicorns. And after this session, hopefully they will look like this at your Umbraco website. And they think twice about taking on it on your Umbraco website. And one other thing you should know about security is you don't have to outrun the bear. You have to outrun your friends. If your website is more secure than another website of the same company, for example, we work a lot of Mercedes-Benz, our company, and we don't want, if they try to hack into a Mercedes-Benz website, we don't want our website to be it. Just go onto the neighbors. So, today we're going to take 4 levels to hack into this website. First, we're going to identify whether it's an Umbraco website. In the second phase, we're trying to get into Umbraco. Next phase is we want to do more in Umbraco than we could do. And finally, we want to clear our tracks so nobody knows we were in that Umbraco. We're going to take some side steps, if time allows us that. And at the end, we have 9 concrete tips that you could all implement on your website. So let's start with the first level, footprinting and identification. The goal of this level is to get as much information about your website as possible. And we're going to look at some specifics of your website, which tells us that it's an Umbraco website. And we're going to use it in the next phases. If anybody ever did some hacking, this is the most important phase. Because if you know what kind of systems the target is running, you can really specify your attacks. You don't want to test for WordPress vulnerabilities on an Umbraco website, for example. And if you try too much, you will generate too much noise and people may get aware that you're trying to hack into the system. So we want to specifically target a specific vulnerability. So, first up, determine if a website is Umbraco. It's pretty hard, because if you look at a homepage, you can use each JavaScript framework or each HTML code, and based on the code, you cannot see whether it's Umbraco. But there's a pretty easy way to determine if it's Umbraco. Just go to /Umbraco, and if it looks something like this, you probably know it's Umbraco. Or maybe it looks like this, or If you have really old versions, maybe it even looks like this. And it's really easy on the first part. They even tell you what version of Umbraco they are running. And after version 4, they got lost in the numbering of their versions. But it's kind of weird that if you go to /Umbraco on our Umbraco website, you see the login form. Because everybody get a few attempts logging into your website. Why is that? Why has the whole world access to your Umbraco environment? I've always found it pretty weird, and the solution is really easy. Just IP whitelist your client. Most of your clients have a few IP addresses, and the result is a significant reduction of the attack surface. Not everybody can log into your Umbraco. Not somebody from, I don't know which country, but can try to hack into your website. The only thing you have to do is get the IP address of your client and whitelist it. And if some clients have several IP addresses and they say, okay, we have a changing IP address. Okay, then whitelist the whole country. There are ranges of IPs per country. Just whitelist them. So a hacker from Russia doesn't have a chance unless he's using a proxy or something like that. But it's a significant reduction of the attack surface. And it's as easy as this. Just add a rule in your web.config where you specify the remote address or the IP address of your client, or multiple even, and that's it. And if you then go to /Umbraco, it looks like this. You get an access denied error. But still, we get an access denied error. So there is something behind /Umbraco. And we want to know what is it, because we can't see it. So the next tip, rename your Umbraco folder. It's also really easy, and people don't know where Umbraco is stored after that. The only thing you have to do is change the folder on disk and 2 settings. You have these 2 settings in your web.config, and we have the folder on disk. And if we rename it, for example, to my secret login panel, we only have to change these 2 settings. And afterwards, if you go to /Umbraco, you get a 404, so nobody knows there's something Umbraco behind it. But people have to go to my secret login panel, for example, and that's much harder to guess. And if you do something like that, we get a 404, so nobody knows we're using Umbraco. But still, we wanted to identify the Umbraco website, and we can do it going to /Umbraco, but we want other things that tell us it's an Umbraco website. If you look to a clean Umbraco folder structure, when you install it, it looks like this. And there are several files, but by default, an IIS web server won't serve these files, ASEX, config, and csproj. So they're gone. We can't use them to determine whether it's Umbraco. There are also folders, like the bin folder, will not get served by default by IIS, so we can't use those. There are empty folders like media and views. By default, they are empty, and it leaves us with these folders. Well, these are also empty. Add plugins, config, and Umbraco client. If we look into the config folder, we see all .config files. They won't get served by IIS by default. But if we look really good, we see one JavaScript file named grideditors.config.js. And if you go to a website and you go to /config/grideditors.config.js, and it looks like this, then you'll be pretty sure that it is an Umbraco website. So, really easy trick. Just go to this JavaScript file, and it gives you all kinds of info about this website. So that must be an Umbraco website. But that's not enough for us. We want a specific version that's being used. And we're going to look at some specifics of the version. If you're lucky and you get to the login screen, you get a lot of data out of that. In the first one, it says, "Happy Tremendous Tuesday." that was 7.0, because in 7.1 they changed it to Happy Tubular Tuesday. So that gives away which version of Umbraco is being used. In 7.5 they added a forgotten password. So if you see forgotten password, you're pretty sure that it's 7.5. In 7.6 they changed the layout to the green. They lost the orange stuff. So if you see a green log on screen with the purple, you're pretty sure it's 7.6 or up. In 7.7, they added an I at the password field. So if you see that, you're pretty sure it's 7.7. And starting from 7.8, they're changing background images. You can see at the background image, if it's the default one, whether it's 7.8, 7.9, or up. But I think that's quite hard. You have to find the Umbraco login page, look at the specifics of the page. We want to automate it. So we're going to look for specific files. Each new feature in Umbraco comes with new functionality and with new language keys. So if we could look at the language file, see what's in the language file, we could probably determine which version is being used. If we go to umbraco/config/lang/en.xml and we see something with reset password email, then we know it's 7.5 or up, because they only introduced it at 7.5. If we do the same for nested content editor not supported, they introduced it in 7.7. So if you see that language key, you know it's 7.7 or up. Sensitive values for GDPR stuff, they introduced it in 7.9. So if we see that language key in an XML that's served by default, we know it's in 7.9 version. And if /Umbraco is unavailable, because you implemented the first two tips, you can go to other folders, like Umbraco Client. There are constant changes. You can look at what specific file you're getting served, and you know what version it is. So it's pretty easy to know what specific version is being used on your website. But we want more info. We want to know what packages did you install. So we can use the same method to look for specific package characteristics. For example, if you go to this URL, it says app plugin /Umbraco form /CSS /Umbraco form CSS, and it gives you something back. You're pretty sure Umbraco forms is installed. If you do the same for app plugins archetype CSS archetype.css, and it gives something back, then you're pretty sure archetype is installed. And you could spider for each and every package out there, and you get results. This is another one. You can also spider for HTML. It isn't rendered because it's some Angular stuff that out of context won't work. But it gives you feedback that this package is installed. So we not only know the version of Umbraco you're using, but we also know which packages you've installed. So my tip is stop leaking this information. Maybe there are security holes in a specific version or a specific package. How many people really security audit the packages, and how many upgrades are installed on packages? So stop leaking this info so hackers can't exploit this. The folders app plugins, config, and Umbraco client should only be used by people who have access to Umbraco. So whitelist these folders as well. It's the same IIS rewrite, but a bit more extensive. It's in the documentation of Umbraco. I've created a small tool to automate it. It's on our corporate website, and it says if it's an Umbraco website, and it can even tell you if I can discover which version you're using and which packages you've been using. And up till a few days ago, I had identified more than 5,000 Umbraco websites. It's just a small part of the total population out there, but still, these are numbers. I've been looking at the versions that were installed, and I've been looking at the installed packages, spidering for more than 120 packages. And the numbers are like these. 45% of the websites have Umbraco forms installed. on number 2 is archetype, and multi-URL picker on number 3. So if I was a hacker, I would try to find a vulnerability in one of these packages and try to exploit it on your Umbraco website. So this is what we know. And even if you have locked down everything, the approach I would take to get into your Umbraco website is get into it via a detour. It's a technique called horizontal pivoting. Maybe you can directly access the website, but maybe there's another website on the same server that has some vulnerabilities that allows you access to the original website. You have to identify other websites running on the same server. And there are all kinds of tools, like for example, ipneighbor.com. You can enter a URL like umbraco.com. And if you hit search, you find 151 other websites running on the same server or on the same IP address. You can try it for your own website and you can see what's identified. There are even better tools than this one, but this is pretty easy. So, mission 1 accomplished. We know the version, we know the packages, and we know other websites on the same server. Let's go to level 2. We want to get into Umbraco. The first way we're going to try to do this is exploiting known vulnerabilities. Because maybe you were thinking, okay, I'm leaking version numbers or packages that I've installed on my website, but what's wrong with that? Well, it's pretty important because all software and even hardware has known vulnerabilities, and they are stored in databases, the so-called CVE databases. They are just vulnerabilities that exist on specific systems. Vulnerability scanners, automated security scanners use these, for example. But also Umbraco states them, for example, on umbraco.com/security. And you see some recent security issues, and they're saying, okay, this is a security update for Umbraco 4.1. So if you discover the 4.1 website, maybe you could look at the specifics of this vulnerability and try to exploit it. But also for version 4.7 or even 4.6 and 7. And the same is true for Umbraco forms. If you identified an Umbraco forms that hasn't patched their stuff, we can use these vulnerabilities to exploit it. This was in May. It was about a specific 4.4 version. So if I see you're using Umbraco Forms 4.3, for example, or 4.4, I can try to run this exploit on your website. This was recently, well, essentially all of, or most versions of Umbraco were vulnerable. And we have these online databases. We can look for Umbraco vulnerability statistics, and we get these kinds of info. Before 7.7.3 or before 7.4. So if we know that you're using a 7.2 version, for example, I would look into the specifics and exploit it on your website. This is one we discovered, I think it's already 2 years ago. Let's see if I can get it to work. Oh. It's coming, hopefully. Let's start over. Some introduction. On the left side, we have the starter kit package that was at 7.5, and we have installed Umbraco forms, and we have one form on the website with an upload field. There's the upload field in Umbraco forms. We're uploading an image of a unicorn. On the right side, we have an interceptor, a proxy interceptor. For example, Fiddler is something you can tweak the request you're sending to the server. And instead of sending the unicorn form to where it's supposed to land, it's a bit hard, but we're using /media/logo.jpg, and we're storing it not on the location where it's supposed to be, but storing it on the media/logo. So if we reload the page, we will see the Umbraco logo on the top left will get updated to the unicorn. This was in this specific version. So if you haven't patched your version yet, I would recommend that. We could also do the same with a text file, hello world in this case, and instead of storing it where it's supposed to be according to Umbraco forms, we're storing it at /view/home.cshtml. And instead of sending over hello world, sorry for the, it's hard, but we're reading out the web.config, or we're overriding the web.config. And once we reload the page, we have your web.config. So by giving away your version numbering and your installed packages, I can look for specific vulnerabilities and exploit them. So tip 4, always upgrade your software. It's a recommended advice by Umbraco, but with all software developers. But do we listen? Is there somebody in the room that didn't update and patch all their website till the most recent 7.12 version? Hands? Me neither. Me neither. Who feels guilty? Yeah, I feel pretty guilty, but still, I haven't patched or updated all of my websites. And with the spider, I identified all these versions. And these are the numbers from CodeGuardian 2018. But you see, most of the versions are a 7.5 Umbraco version. So you don't have to feel guilty that you're not updating till the latest version of Umbraco all your installation, because the rest of the world doesn't either. But if you have updated your website, you will get a failure on this mission, because you won't get into Umbraco if you update it to the latest versions and keep it all up to date. But still, we want to get in. So maybe we can take a different approach. Maybe we can create a really cool package and insert into the package a little exploit, just a tiny one. And we're going to hide our presence on the system. For example, one of the packages we've created is an extension for Umbraco Forms. Does a lot of cool stuff. We've called it Forms on Steroid, and it's open source. You can download it on our, and you can even look at the source code. You can click source code, you go to GitHub, and they can do a check on the code. And you think, okay, these are proper software developers, let's install it. You go back to our, you download the package, but maybe we haven't uploaded the same package as the link on the source code. Nobody prohibits me from doing something like this. And maybe there's in the code something like this. So it's just 4 lines of code. Every time, as long as I have a valid username and I use the password, evil password, I will get in. So these are the official Umbraco guidelines. You should audit your plugins, but still, you don't know if there's something evil in it. So tip 5 is maybe compile the packages yourself. I won't do it like this, but it's a consideration, and it's an easy way to get an exploit into somebody else's website. Be aware of it. So theoretically, maybe I could get into your website. Okay, next level, privilege escalation. Some definitions, it's exploiting a bug, most of the times due to a configuration oversight, to gain more access than intended, and to do unauthorized actions. This is the definition, but easy said, we have access to Umbraco, but we want more access. One way of doing that is social engineering. Meet Mike, he's a trainee at our company, and he knows a bit of Umbraco, and he helps editing our website. It's a really complex website, like we've seen in the wild. Some of the data types look like this. You have to fill in an MD underscore title, probably a meta description title or something like that, and a program ID. Nobody knows where the ID stands for. But Mike is really a cool guy. He says, okay, it's Umbraco, so I can add really easily some descriptions to your doc types. Shall I do it for you? Well, it's a trainee out of heaven, because of course you can help. And the only thing he needs is access to the document types, because there you can enter a description. And he says, oh yeah, and by the way, give me access on production, because we don't have a proper tool to get our development environment to production. They're not using Umbraco Cloud or something like that. So we give him access, he goes to the home page, and he starts entering descriptions. But he's really nice, but he's an intern or a trainee, and he doesn't earn much money. And he sees he has also access to the templates, the homepage, for example. And maybe he adds in some little script, for example, a Bitcoin miner. So he can earn some more money, and by giving him access to the settings tree, we also gave him access to the template. Or the Bitcoin miner maybe get detected after a while because people start complaining that their computer is used for bit mining. But maybe he's putting out the connection string of Umbraco. He saves it and then removes it from the code, and he has the connection string, even though he doesn't have access to the web.config or something like this. Or maybe he's really smart and he's executing some SQL. He's inserting itself into the database and giving them full rights to get access to everything. So my tip is, in production, only give write permissions on these two folders. Only when people save media, in the media folder, they should have write access, and in the app data map folder, you use it too. On all the other folders, you don't need write access for the website. Because if then I would save the template, it wouldn't save because we didn't have write permissions. Next mission, we want to extract crucial data from the database. We can use SQL injection, but we also saw that if I have access to the templates, I could execute SQL and get SQL out of it. He's really smart, and he gained access to this table. It's a secret info table. Just all the data, he can get out of it, save it, and do whatever he wants with it. So my next tip is, store your sensitive data that you don't want others to see encrypted in the database. It's another line of defense to protect you against people like Mike or other hackers. Encryption. There are two ways out of the box in SQL Server, and there's a hard way. It's doing it by code. If we look at the first one, transparent data encryption, SQL Server called it, or Microsoft called it. And it's used to encrypt the MDF, the master data file, and the log data file on disk. And it encrypts the backup as well. It's really easy. You go to your SQL Server Management Studio or something like that, and you click encryption enabled, you set it to true, and you have encryption. But it won't help against SQL injection because it's encrypting the file on disk, but if you execute something like select star from secret info table, you still get this info back. So it's good, but it won't help you against SQL injection, the #1 vulnerability in most of the websites. The other one, always encrypted in SQL. It's also a checkmark you set, and then you have encrypted data in your website. You can do it per column. Just right-click on your website or in your table, encrypt columns. You can put it on specific columns, only not on end text or text columns, the columns where Umbraco stores most of the data in, so it won't work on these columns. And now with a database, a DBA logs into the database and he executes select star from secret info table, he gets gibberish. and that's what we want. But the website user with his credentials will still see it unencrypted. So still, if you have SQL injection in your website, we still get everything out of it. So maybe you think, okay, yes, we have encrypted everything, but these tools work, but not for a SQL injection, for example. Because the only valid option is the third option, doing it yourself, manual encryption in C# or in .NET. Before storing it in the database, encrypt it, and once getting it out, decrypt it. So when you execute something like with SQL injection, you get the plain text out of the table, but you have no way of decrypting it because you can't execute C# code on the website because you only have SQL injection. So also this mission is accomplished. We gained access to Umbraco and we extracted some data from the database. Going over to the last phase, we want to clear our tracks. We don't want to be discovered. We want to remove our presence out of the file system, and we want to make sure that nothing on the web server is stored about our username that we've used. If you're doing some forensics in Umbraco, Umbraco logs all login attempts into their website. For example, in app data/logs, you can see somebody had a valid login attempt from this and this IP address. They are stored in text files, but because they are stored in text files, we can edit the text files with something like this, or you write some C# code, or you do something like this. And we're removing all the lines where my evil login at perplex.nl came by. So this tip is, do not store logs only on disk, which can be easily edited by a website user, because he has access to the app data/logs files. Don't do it like this, but store it, for example, in the Windows event viewer. It's really simple. There's something like log4net in Umbraco. You add these standard extra lines, and suddenly all login attempts comes into the Windows event viewer. And what's nice about the Windows event viewer is that you can't remove single lines out of that log. You can clear the whole log, but normally that's a signal that there's something wrong with your system if your whole Windows event viewer log is flushed. So in the Windows event viewer system, it's much better. And there are also toolings to get it out of the server to another log server, and it's really easily done with Windows event viewer. Okay, we removed our presence out of the web server. Now look at the database server. Umbraco stores data also, for example, in Umbraco user, Umbraco user login, Umbraco audit, etc. But we've inserted data before, so we can get it out as well. Just create a delete statement, we flushed our the columns or the rows, and we removed our presence. So, last tip of the day, restrict your database permissions per table. Not on each and every table you should have create, read, update, and delete rights. Read, update, and delete should only be on some tables. If we don't have delete right, for example, on a log table, then we couldn't delete these rows from out the website. Because clearing these tables, in my opinion, is a DBO task or a DBA task, and not a website task. So, mission 4 accomplished. We removed our presence, so we did what we're supposed to do. Mission accomplished. To sum it up, the hardening tips that you should take home. First, IP whitelist your Umbraco folder. I think that's the most important one. It's really easy, and it really reduces the attack surface. 2, rename the Umbraco folder. IP whitelist also these other folders that I've been using to discover which plugins you've been using or which version of Umbraco. Always upgrade Umbraco and your plugins. Tip 5, maybe compile your packages yourself. You don't know what's in it. In production, only give read-only permissions to most of the folders. Encrypt sensitive data. It's hard. It has some drawbacks, but if it's really sensitive data, you should encrypt it. Store your logs in Windows Event Viewer. And finally, minimize your CRID permissions on your database tables. Waiting till everybody took a picture. And now we have a more secure application, a more secure Umbraco website, and we're done. That's it. I don't know if I have any time left, but then we have some time for questions. Sorry?
Can you share the slide with the hardware tips?
Yep, I will. Am I out of time?
Pretty much, yes.
Okay, cool. Then that's it. Come talk to me afterwards if you have more questions or ideas. I'd love to talk to you.